Hi YouTube, this is Tim Unkert from UnkertEducation.com. In this video, we're going to look at factoring binomials. And when I factor binomials, I first want to start by reviewing the distributive property because we're basically, once we do the distributive property, we're working backwards when we factor binomials. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. So let's look at this first example where we have 3 times the quantity x plus 1. So I'm going to distribute or multiply the 3 by both the x term and by both 4, okay? So if I do 3 times x, I get 3x. And if I do 3 times 4, I get plus 12 here. Okay, so that's the first one. Second example, we have x times the quantity x minus 5. So if I do x times x, I get x squared. Do my equal sign here. So x times x is x squared. And then x times a minus 5 is minus 5x. So we have minus 5x. Okay, and our third one, we're multiplying 3 by the quantity x minus 7. So 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times a minus 7 is minus 21, or plus a negative 21, which we can just write as minus 21 here. And our last example of the distributive property, we're going to do x times x, which is x squared. And we also have to multiply, since we're multiplying x by this quantity x plus 4, we also have to multiply the x by 4. So we get plus 4x. Okay, so after we've reviewed the distributive property, when we're factoring a binomial, we're going to take something like this, and we're going to bring it back to something like this. Okay, so we're working backwards. Okay, so let's look at this first one. If we're going to factor, let me put a period here, factor 3x plus 6. Okay, so 3x plus 6. Okay, we have to look at both terms in the binomial. So we have the term 3x, and we have the term 6. And we have to figure out what is the common factor, the greatest common factor between the two of them. So 3x, if I look here, well, that's divisible by 3. And 6 is also divisible by 3. That's the greatest common factor between the two of them. So this is going to work to 3. And then we have to multiply it by some binomial quantity here that will be equivalent. So if I do 3 times x, that'll give me 3x. And if I do 3 times 2, that'll give me 6. And so now I've factored my binomial. Okay, let's take a look at this next example. So in example 2 here, we're factoring 4x minus 16. Okay, so we have to look at the common factors of both the term 4x and the term negative 16. Okay, so we say 4x minus 16, what would that equal? Well, both terms, both the 4x and the minus 16, the greatest common factor between the two of them is 4. So we're going to pull out a 4. And then we have to multiply that by a binomial quantity to make it equivalent to this. So if I do 4 times x, I'm going to get this first part, 4x. And if I do 4 times a negative 4, I'm going to get negative 16. Okay? Let me just move this over here. Okay, so the next one we're factoring x squared plus 4x. So x squared plus 4x. So we first have to think, well, what's the greatest common factor between x squared and 4x? Well, both are divisible by x, and that is our greatest common factor. So we're going to pull out the x, and then we have to think of what do I have to multiply x by here to get x squared. So x times x, you multiply anything by itself, you square it, that'll give me x squared. And then what do I have to multiply x by to get 4x? Well, plus 4. Okay. This last one, we're going to factor x squared minus 7x. So let me write this a little larger. X squared minus 7x. Okay. We have to look at what are the common factors between, or the greatest common factor between x squared and minus 7x. In this case, the greatest common factor between the two of these is x. And if I want to multiply something by x to get x squared, just like the previous problem, we're going to multiply it by x. And if I want to multiply x by something to get negative 7x, I have to multiply it by a negative 7 or a minus 7 here. Okay, so, and now if I go through this and I really want to check all these, what I can do, and I'll show you the first one. So the first one, if we want to check these, we just use the distributive property. We take this, our solution, 3 times x plus 2, and we use the distributive property and see if we get our solution here, or our what we started with, 3x plus 6. So we do 3 times x, we get 3x. 3 times 2 is 6, so 3x plus 6. So both this and this match. So let me put a check. That checks, and this checks. They're the same. So it all checks out. We know we got the right answer. And you can do that for each one of these. Hopefully this video was helpful to you. If it was, please like and subscribe. Thank you.